So I worked on the Kanye West album as a co-producer on one of the tracks, and I want him to remove my name from the project. I don't want to be associated with it. Sounds kind of crazy, right? Obviously that didn't happen to me, but it did happen to a producer who was actively and publicly campaigning to get his credits removed off of Kanye West's album. Now, you got to be an accomplished, wealthy, confident producer to pull a move like that. And in fact, he is. But embedded in all of that is the startling statistic, and it's just someone's opinion. It's the same producer, that 95% of all of his beats were unpaid. So if we extend that out and just kind of generalize a little bit, is it realistic? Is it accurate to say that 95% of all the beats that a producer makes aren't going to sell? Is it accurate to say that 95% of the work that producers do doesn't make them any money? I think it depends, but as shocking as that number may be, I think there's something to that. So we're talking about two separate issues in this particular video. Number one, the whole Kanye situation getting taken or asking to be taken off the Kanye album. Most producers would fight for dear life to get credit on an album, any kind of major label release. And then the whole 95% of all beats remain unsold, or 95% of all producers' work is unpaid. Oh man, yeah. Let's jump right in.
Something from James Blake here. Cue up that topic, Payne.
95% of the work I've done was unpaid.
Unpaid?
Yeah.
How's that happen?
Well, because, you know, as a producer, you're just throwing stuff at a wall, right, and seeing what sticks. And sometimes a lot of things that people don't put out, or that sits on a hard drive for a long time. And, you know, that includes my own stuff, by the way. You know, the 10,000 hours that we talk about arriving at some kind of mastery of something. I probably spent that just doing things that never came out.
So yeah, is that an accurate percentage for you, Payne? Does 95% of the work you do never see the light of day?
It's a depressing percentage. I think 95 is absolutely accurate at that level. You know, James Blake is working with the top tier artists in the music business, and he himself is up there as a producer. So yeah, I mean, I think what you see from artists and producers actually being released is absolutely the tiniest minority of what they've actually created and recorded.
Yeah. I think it's tough for producers, you know, even working with Room and Board, just kind of this initial phase, you know, trying to get them to start working on music. And, you know, they just want beats sent to them for inspiration. And I'm like, well, and producers step up to the plate and provide that. But to me, that is pretty inefficient for the producers. It's not like, you know, they can just sit here all day and cook up beats like without any direction. So I'm trying to nudge them and encourage them to give a little bit of guidance, you know, to just have producers working on beats and just to turn around and probably say, I don't like that. You know, I understand that's the process sometimes, and that's what producers have to go through. But I would encourage artists, if you're listening, you know, try to give some direction. You know, it takes a long time to produce good music. So to have producers working on stuff for hours to send you a pack of beats and then you listen to it and then the feedback isn't really helpful at all. It's just like, I just wasn't feeling those. So now it's like back to the drawing board. Is that how you're experiencing it? How I'm seeing it?
That's how everyone's experiencing it. And it's one of those things where whoever is in charge of approving whatever you're creating. So if you're a songwriter and you're writing for an artist, you're a producer, you're producing for the songwriter or for an artist or for a TV show or whatever. If you're scoring, if you're doing anything that requires some type of approval from somebody else, somebody who's above you on the chain of command, this is always what happens. This is, until you find a different dynamic, you're going to suffer through this shit. And for me, what was so frustrating was, honestly, before I started putting beats out online and had my nose in the air about beat leasing, I was being hit with that 95% where it's like, man, this is soul crushing when you really think about it. I tried not to think about it because what James Blake was saying flat out, 95% of what I do is unpaid. And it's not that he's working for free for people. It's that 95% of the beats and production ideas and song concepts he comes up with don't go anywhere. They never get released. They never see the light of the day. And in the industry, the capital I music industry, working with these labels, you don't get paid if the music doesn't come out most of the time. Sometimes you'll get a partial advance, whatever. But for me, that's absolutely soul crushing when you reflect on a folder of 1,000 beats and you're like, damn, I've sold, whatever the percentage of that is closest to like 5 to 10%, maybe even 2 or 3%. And like, granted, 2 or 3% of 1,000, that's a lot of beats to sell. And if a couple of them are hits, you're good financially, but it's still soul crushing, especially if you're not, getting singles or making big money. So for me, my solution was just put everything out that I make, even if it doesn't do well, because not every single beat that I upload sells. Certainly not every single beat that I upload to the internet and release to the world is a success, but it's better than knowing they're just sitting on a hard drive and no one has ever heard them.
Right. So I guess beat leasing, that's part of the solution. Maybe this is where AI can add a lot of value, right? Because I was watching an interview with Hitmaker. I probably should have clipped this one because it relates. And he was saying that he typically plays beats with hooks already on them. Because a lot of artists, they don't have a vision for a song right out the gate. I would say most artists don't have a vision for a song just when they hear the beat. Maybe if you give them a little assistance and you give them a beat with a hook, and maybe that hook is created with AI just to kind of nudge it and push the concept along. Maybe they hear the beat differently, or it gives them a different idea of what they can potentially do with that production. I think this is where AI could play a role for producers and potentially landing more of the 95%.
Well, in defense of humans, you can work with hook singers, or you can write concepts yourself. You see a lot of producers doing that in studio sessions. And the video that I dropped, ironically, it includes a story about Timbaland, who's championing AI right now. But this was pre-AI Timbaland. And yeah, I think a producer can do quite a bit. I think our roles have changed over time. But again, it opens a can of worms about what the producer's role is and what the definition of a producer is too, right? So that's why I'm looking forward to that concept. But did you know James Blake is requesting to be removed from the new Kanye album's credits? Did you hear about that?
I saw you sent that over, and I've never seen that. I respect it. You want to give a little bit more color around that? Because I respect it, but I don't think I've ever seen that before.
So I guess James Blake worked on a track called This One Here, and he said he no longer felt like the spirit of his contributions were present on the final release. And Kanye's notorious for creating these legions of producers to work on tracks. And I remember I've had a couple experiences where a track that I want to say my Ludacris and Rick Ross record was supposed to be co-produced by Kanye. There were some other records too that either Kanye started working on and they just never saw the light of day or what. So it was kind of one of those things when they told me, hey, Kanye is going to do something with this. I had a track with The Game too, where I think Cool and Dre added something to it. So I don't know how that affected the splits because there was a sample, but either way, you always start kind of thinking, okay, I'm excited for this, but I also don't know what they're going to do because I'm not in the space with them. And like, if I'm in a studio with Cool and Dre or Kanye, who's going to have the stronger opinion and who's going to have, the power to make that decision based on that opinion? It's always going to be them, unless I suddenly become as big as them, which is crazy. So you feel a combination of anxiety and excitement until you hear the final result. So in James Blake's case, I guess he heard the final result and he was like, this is not my vision.
Maybe it was, and I don't know which record, but I can definitely see a situation where the content or maybe something he said was offensive or something. Maybe you didn't want to contribute to that. I have no idea, but only somebody in James Blake position would do something like this. In my opinion, right? Like an up and coming producer is not going to want his name taken off of a Kanye record.
Well, they might, but they probably, no one would care. No one would give, or that's your moment to get some PR.
Right. Because even if the song changed, like there is an argument that, you know, it started with your production and it was very loud. It got a little quieter over time, but the song wouldn't have morphed into what it was if it didn't have like that initial feel and sound. So you played a part even in how it evolved as a song, right? So there's an argument to be made that you still contributed. You know, it still was a strong contribution to the song, even though the end product wasn't how you initially envisioned it.
Yeah, I can sit here and say, okay, James Blake is crazy for even trying this. Why would? But he's in an entirely different position. He's worked with Kanye. I don't know what his relationship is like with Kanye or with that song, or who knows what happened during the process. Who knows what they discussed. It could be as surface level as it being exactly what he says, or maybe there was some energy that felt weird while he was making it, or maybe he said, I don't like the direction this is going in, and everyone ignored him. Who knows? It's all speculation because we weren't there. But I can understand that. It's hard to relate to it, but I can understand it.